All right, so the craziness really never is ending at this point. In that, another crazy thing came out yesterday. This is from Paul Mitchell, and he says 585 of the 587 you know what deaths in BC were elderly in long-term care homes. But what the heck? Let's shut down the whole province right now again. The I think this is the chief medical officer for BC basically said that yesterday, or sorry, it was 2 days ago. So again, like this whole situation, I mean, I kind of think to myself, and it's getting so boring. Like it's so boring having to point out the same stuff over and over again, that the more data that comes out, the less of a threat this whole virus situation appears to be, right? Like stuff like this is just more proof of that. So again, it's so boring having to deal with the same stuff over and over again. Like I really want to know, like, what major pieces of evidence have came out recently that show that the virus is more of a threat than what we originally thought. And people jump out saying, "Oh, what about the cases?" Right? But again, we've been over that a million times. The cases do not matter, right? The cases do not matter, and that number one, they are heavily manipulated. Like half of them are false positives, and number two, again, that they don't acknowledge that unless you're very old or have multiple various very serious health conditions, you have nothing to be worried about, right? You have nothing to be worried about. If you are not in one of those two groups, you are no more susceptible than the flu. You are no more susceptible to the flu. And I think that the thing that bothers me most about this is that the solution to this virus situation has been very clear going back to literally like April or May. I remember saying at the time that there was no reason that we should continue with the lockdowns. The only restrictions that should be in place are very minor things on nursing homes and maybe large gatherings, right? Aside from that, people should be living a normal life. And it just boggles my mind why this is even a question anymore. Like, why are we still doing lockdowns? There's so many pieces of evidence that show that there's no reason for them. Again, the hospitals have never been overwhelmed. If they haven't been overwhelmed up until this point, what makes you think they will? And even if you do think they will, these are the same people that told us the hospitals were going to be overwhelmed when we peaked at like 300 cases back in the spring. We're having like 1,500 new cases a day, and yet the hospitals still aren't overwhelmed. So what they're saying by telling you that is that they are either so incompetent that they have no way of telling whether or not the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed, or they were lying to us, because there's no way that you can say that by having 300 new cases a day, the hospitals are a serious threat to be overwhelmed and we got to stay locked down, but 1,500 and they're still not overwhelmed. Like again, they clearly did no, they're either lying to us or they did no research into this whatsoever. I think it's just they're misleading us. But again, that's what I would personally guess. But again, like this whole situation, like it's just absolutely crazy that we're still having to go over this stuff. The solution to this situation is so clear it is not even funny. Let normal people go about their daily lives. Have restrictions when it comes to nursing homes. If you want to stay home and wear your tinfoil hat and preach about how doomsday is going to come, go ahead. Nobody's stopping you. But there is no reason that everyday people that don't have serious health conditions or aren't very old need restrictions put on them. It makes no sense. There is no scientific basis to quarantine healthy people. There is no scientific basis to forcing healthy people to wear masks. Right? There is no scientific basis to that. It's like I say, it's just so boring having to go over the same stuff over and over again. So boring for stuff like this have to come out over and over again. That overwhelmingly shows that we shouldn't be locked down, that the vast majority of the restrictions have no basis whatsoever for them. But yet, what is the government's solution to this stuff? It's just more restrictions, more lockdowns, more everything, right? And this is the thing that I'm trying to tell people is that they're not going to give in until more people start to speak up, right? Like they're not going to give in. And this is something that this is the part of this that bothers me the most, is that in talking to people, I find that the people, the average person, when it comes to this whole situation, they're not very outspoken in either direction because very few people fully support the lockdowns and very few people are like me. The most amount of people are people that reluctantly support it, I think partially under the guise that they think it's just going to be temporary. And this is the biggest mistake that we've made as a society up until this point, is that thinking that all this garbage is going to be temporary. It's not. They've told us that now, even after having the vaccine, we're still going to need mask mandates and social distancing and restrictions. So again, they're literally telling us they're not going to take the restrictions away until enough people say "f you." Like how much more obvious do they have to make it? I really don't know. Like I really don't know. Now, most of the people watching this are probably fully aware of this stuff, like fully aware of this stuff. But one thing I do know is that Christmas is a week from tomorrow, and even though the government has basically made it illegal to meet with your family over Christmas, I'm guessing a lot of the people watching this are going to be, at the very least, seeing some family on Christmas. So again, you have to bring this stuff up. Like you have to bring this stuff up too. And here's the thing: people are worried about getting reported or having that crazy lefty family member, go after them in the way the crazy lefties do. But here's the thing: if someone's willing to meet with you over Christmas, it probably means they don't actually care that much, right? It probably means they don't care that much. So I think anybody who's willing to meet with you over Christmas is probably going to be somewhat receptive to this kind of stuff. So again, you have to speak up. This is the biggest mistake that people have made up until this point. Is number one, thinking that it's just temporary, and number two, not speaking up often enough. And I think the reason that they don't speak up often enough is that they think a lot more people support the lockdowns than actually do. Like I said, I think the biggest group of people are people who support this stuff, but they think that, oh, it's only temporary, so I'll go along with it. I think that's the biggest group of people because again, most of the people I talk to, they're people that are bothered by the way things are currently going, right? That they're tired of it. They want things to go back to normal, and they're tired of being misled. So again, you got to bring this stuff up to people. This is from Dr. David Samadi, talking about a post from AP Health and Science saying, you know what, pandemic has led to an unprecedented surge of children and teens in psychiatric crisis that is straining an already stretched healthcare system. And again, this is just another piece of evidence that points towards what are we doing? Why in the world are we locking down kids who the government's own numbers, again, those are the government's own numbers, so again, YouTube, don't censor me over this. The government's own numbers show that again, I've StatsCan, the CDC, they'll show you this. Um, I think StatsCan numbers show that about 20 people under the age of 15 die a year in Canada of the flu, and up until this point, I think we have like one or two that have died of the virus. So again, not only is it less, is the virus not as bad as the flu for very young people, it's actually not even close, right? So again, like why in the world are we quarantining healthy people? It makes no sense, right? It makes no sense. This is from Paul Yolo, and again, this is another chart that just completely debunks the lockdown zealots narrative. In that he says Slovenia did everything according to the lockdown slash mask proponents, including indoor mask mandate in March and outdoor mask mandate in October. Sweden did everything wrong. Slovenia has currently the highest mortality in Europe. Sweden's in the middle. And again, you look at their graphs here compared to Sweden. And again, the most interesting point is at no point has Sweden went above them. And you look at when they put the lockdowns in here after the first one, the cases spiked quite a bit, and then same goes for the second one, right? Same goes for the second one. Again, it's so tiring having to deal with this stuff just over and over and over again. It's so tiring, so tiring. Like I say, that I've literally probably brought up more of these graphs than I can count when it comes to this kind of stuff. And again, the worst thing about it is that the lockdown zealots, they really only have a couple examples. Like, do they have anything other than New Zealand and Australia to point to? Like, I really don't. They used to use the Asian ones, but again, that's completely unfair because South Korea and Japan neither one of them had mask mandates or mandatory lockdowns, right? They were both just suggestions, right? So they can't use those examples. Like, where can they use? Where can, again, people say, well, that's two examples. Okay, well, we have Slovenia here as an example of that clearly not working. We have New York, we have California. Um, Not to mention on the flip side, we have, basically, I mean, you look at the states that have had no lockdowns or very little lockdown. There's no discernible difference. There's no discernible difference. And you look at Europe too. Like you look at Europe too. Like same goes for that too, right? People are saying, oh, Sweden, the cases have spiked. Well, no, they have spiked a little bit, but not compared to a lot of these other countries, right? So this is from Andrew Lawton here, and he says, so what I'm gathering here is that if you protest against anything other than lockdown, Trudeau is all for it. There you go, Randy Hillier. Just work a bit about Indian farming in your next speech, and you can protest without getting charged. And again, this is the worst part, one of the worst parts about this whole situation. I mean, here's the other thing too: is that for anybody who supported the lockdowns, if they didn't condemn the BLM protests slash riots, regardless of whether or not they agreed with them, if they didn't condemn them, again, this is just another example that makes their opinion completely meaningless. Like completely meaningless because again, if you they have literally said that no, it doesn't matter about freedom of speech or the right to gather whatever right you want to talk about. They have literally said you don't have rights right now. They have literally said you don't have rights right now. So again, if these people didn't, anybody who's supporting the lockdowns and who's criticizing Randy Hillier and Mark Friesen and these kind of people for having their rallies, anybody who's criticizing them, um, if you supported the BLM protests, then you're a massive hypocrite. You're a massive hypocrite because and the reason that they justify their hypocrisy is they think that BLM is this incredibly noble cause, right? And we're fighting more racism, right? And here's the thing, like I say, it doesn't matter what you think of it, right? It doesn't matter what you think of it. It has everything to do with if you believe in the right to protest, if you believe in free speech, then you must believe in free speech for everybody. Unless it is a literal call to violence or literal violence, it's covered, right? It's covered. So again, and again, Justin Trudeau's confirming that too, right? They're standing up for free speech and the right to protest in India, right? They're doing it in India, which is good, right? That's good, but yet they're not doing it in their own country, and this is something that I really can't stand. Is that we have literal third world countries that have more rights than we do right now. We have literal third world countries. We fought multiple world wars over this garbage, right? And this is the thing that bothers me so much too, is that you have all of these people, especially like the boomers and stuff too, is that they shame the younger generations for not caring as much about Remembrance Day and stuff like that, but yet they turn around and support getting rid of many of the rights that their parents or grandparents fought for, right? Like how ignorant can you possibly be? Like you're shaming people for not respecting this kind of stuff, and you're being as disrespectful as they are, if not worse, right? It's just so funny to me. um, so anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. I have multiple other platforms I'm posting videos on right now because YouTube has started censoring me. So make sure you check me out there. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I appreciate whatever support I can get. But at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And like I say, stay tuned for more and have a good day.